Hey, welcome everybody to the Wired for Growth podcast. My name is Michael Paul, president and founder of Winona IT. If you haven't heard of Winona IT, we are a IT support, consulting, and software development business located in northern Indiana. Our mission is to change the perception of what it means to do business with an IT consulting group, both from an employee standpoint and from a client standpoint. Our goal with this podcast is to create enriching content, covering subjects in tech, life, and getting into various business insights as well. We were so excited to get started on the podcast. We didn't have everything planned out, and we headed over to Dream Studios and recorded an episode on artificial intelligence. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump into that first conversation now. Yeah, my name is Michael Paul, and I'm founder and president of Winona IT. I get to serve a lot of different roles at the organization. Founded the company in 2019, early 2019. Really started the company because you really couldn't get sound IT support. Went through several different companies, and I just couldn't hire good help. Created Winona IT with some great partners, and we provide IT support, consulting, software development, largely in northern Indiana, but really throughout the United States.
I'm Nate. I lead the software engineering teams that to try to provide direction and vision so that we're building the best software that meets the needs of clients.
Yeah, and I'm Scott, and I am the culture director at Winona IT. Really, as we grow as a company, we want it to be more than just a company that's solving IT problems, but really a great place to work where we're developing people and just really enriching other people's lives.
Scott, I really just want to take a minute and thank the whole Dream On crew. Dream On Studios, unbelievable here in Warsaw. They've really helped us get to this point, and just so awesome to have such great partners there. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I want to welcome you to our technology series. We've got a whole bunch of topics lined up that we'd love to just kind of explore and present with you. Today, we're going to be looking into something that's just become really front and center here over the last couple of years, even though it's been around a lot longer, and that's artificial intelligence. Michael, could you just kind of maybe give us what is it and what is it not, really?
Yeah, so maybe my answer is going to be too simplistic for some people, but I think artificial intelligence is really anything that makes systems and computers more intelligent. And really basic example I can give you, Google Maps is just a small example. I was driving back from Chicago yesterday, and Google Maps popped up and said, "Hey, there's a car stalled up ahead, and you need to be careful." We slowed down right away. Sure enough, there was a vehicle on the side of the road that had stalled out. And artificial intelligence would be tracking different people using Google Maps and understanding that one of these cars is just on the side of the road, and then conveying that message to other people using the system. So making that system a lot smarter. It's just one example. Nate, you want to give your take on AI?
Yeah, I'm gonna get pose you with a question. Remember Clippy?
Yeah.
Is that AI or not?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I know a lot of people would argue.
You love to hate it.
Yeah. Man, I don't have a good answer on whether that's AI or not. I'd say I want to say no.
Okay.
That would just be a real simple program, but by my definition, I think you could argue that it is. So what's your take?
Yeah, I would say it doesn't follow our today's definition of what we would call AI, but what it really is, it's been around for a long, long time, is just trying to make decisions that mimic human type behavior, and particularly to get into the subjective that requires context type of decision making. And Clippy tried to get there, and it'd pop up, "Hey, I see you're trying it," and then we just love to hate it because it more often than not got it wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, that Yeah, that's essentially what AI is. It's just trying to make decisions in a way that mimics human intelligence. And it's been around for a long, long time, but it's gone from very deterministic. I think this is the piece that really has transformed it lately. Is it used to be deterministic, meaning the same input would always produce the same output, because it's already been predefined, pre-programmed. All of the logic gates, the yes, no decision making points, have all been pre-planned. Whereas with AI, you let the system generate those decision gates based off the statistical probabilities, and because of that, and there's a sense of randomness to it, that it's not always deterministic. The same input does not always give you the same output. That's why if you're in ChatGPT, for example, you have in the prompt, you can regenerate the response. So it's the exact same input that you've given it. You click the regenerate, output's just slightly different. And that's the piece that gives it a little bit scary, is like, okay, is there some personality behind the scenes that's going to have its own agenda that is going to somehow be against our best interests or not? And it's, when you dig into it, it's really not true. That's not really what's going on. Yeah. This is might come across a little bit lame, but it's been around for such a long time. Where I have seen it, even when I was young, is actually playing video games. Because from the very beginning of the video games, you have to have some kind of opponent. And before multiplayer and big, massive community type games where the technology was able to support that, your opponent was the computer. So the software engineers had to build a measure of intelligence in the game in order to be able to make it a challenge for the player. So it's been around for a long, long time, and just that avenue of it. But you see in other bits and pieces where anytime the computer needs to make some kind of a decision for a user, that's where really artificial intelligence, in its very small form, is at play.
Nate, that's a good example. And I think outside of smartphones, another way that most people have been exposed to AI already is in banking, right? Yeah. Have you ever gotten that alert that said, man, this seems like an unusual spend. Was this really you? And behind the scenes, there was artificial intelligence that looked at your pattern of spending, locations. Is maybe this is a little bit suspicious. Maybe we should shut down your debit card. So I think it's really enriching people's lives already. And just like everything, I think there's an opportunity for abuse and misuse. But I think there's such a vast ocean of possibilities for this to really impact people for good.
Yeah, I think whenever new technology comes out, there's misunderstandings that surround it. What are maybe some of the things that people don't understand or maybe perceive it incorrectly?
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind right away is that there's scientists in a lab, that somehow cooking up artificial intelligence, and it's this big, mysterious, crazy thing that it's actually not. Yeah. There are really easy ways that you can get involved in artificial intelligence. As I stated, even just on your mobile device, there's free apps that you can use to interact with artificial intelligence. This is not some crazy scientific, there's some complexity in developing artificial intelligence, but it's not really something that needs to be reserved for an elite group of PhDs. It's really not. And Nate, maybe you could talk about a way or two in which we've been able to use it at Winona IT for our clients.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think of a couple ways. One way that we've been experimenting with AI, the specific subset of AI that's a large language model, which is ChatGPT, is an example of that. And that's really the one that's getting all the headlines right now for AI. But again, it's a really narrow, specific subset, but it's very exciting. It's very powerful. It's really good at taking lots of content, lots of information, and being able to synthesize and summarize that down into digestible chunks. But I've said this before in our previous, before we started, but the real exciting piece about that isn't just the output, but it's the ease at which you can use it. you don't have to fiddle around with some clunky UI that you don't know anything about. All you have to do is just type in a chat box, give me this, what's the answer to this as question, and it can take that, it can understand the subjective meaning of what you're trying to get after, and then be able to deliver the content very, very easily. The interface with the machine is so easy. So what we've done for a client on one of them is some very complex documentation is related to the industry that they're in, that's just notoriously difficult because it's so vast. There's so much intricate detail. We've been experimenting with putting that material to the model, to pointing the AI to that material. And then we can ask specific questions like how does this work in the business in this specific scenario or use case? And it can come back with the answer. And like in this use case, this is how the rules say, this is how to go about it. Now, again, it's AI, it's not perfect, but it gets you really, really close, really, really quickly to some source material that saves a lot of time. That's one. Another client that we're working with in the biomedical field is leveraging visual AI recognition, which is just a completely different set of AI than the large language models. And it's able to look at a medical device label and be able to look and compare and see differences right away. That's much, much quicker than what it takes a human to see it, and with very, very high precision. So just a couple examples.
Scott, when you mentioned misconceptions, another one is, hey, AI doesn't really affect me. I'm hearing that quite a bit. I would draw a parallel to, the kind of the electric revolution or when electricity really became prevalent. There were a lot of people with their candles and their fireplaces saying, hey, this doesn't really impact me. This is reserved for an elite group. And hey, to this day, there's still a few people that have opted out. But I think that the thought that this doesn't impact me is only going to be a possibility here for a very short period of time. There's a lot of people saying that this AI revolution is going to scale the same way that electricity or the industrial revolution or the internet. This is the next wave of opportunities. And I would say, instead of worrying about, hey, this doesn't impact me, this is an opportunity that's going to create an incredible amount of wealth for a lot of people. The same way those previous revolutions did exactly that. And so to embrace it and to lean into it, to me, makes a whole lot more sense than, staying kind of naive and in the dark on this. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I think we're going to see the people who lean in, it's creating an astronomical amount of wealth.
Yeah, I just had a kind of a slid into this the other day. My browser that I was using did an update. And right after I did my normal Google search, it popped up a little bit of like a Chat GPT window and kind of looked like an assistant saying, hey, you're searching for this. Have you considered this? And I just thought, man, that's great because here's something that's trying to anticipate, help me think through what I'm looking for, and just super helpful.
Yeah, the generator of that value is the multiplier of productivity that it provides. So what I mean by that is you put in X amount of effort, and then out of it you get Y output. And each of these technological advances has increased that multiplier so that you have to input less effort to get more output out of it. And that's really the meat of what makes AI such a great potential for eventually generating wealth for those who know how to wield it.
Yeah. So we've all seen those movie lines that basically, the robots eventually take over and it's a bad thing and we got to reverse this thing. What would you say are maybe some of the safeguards or things that, technology can put in place to, not have that script be in the future?
Well, I think we're really behind on this, actually, Scott. I think there are some really bright people who have kind of raised the alarm on this years ago to say we need some regulation, we need some government intervention. I'm not a big government intervention person, but this AI does need regulation, and we are behind. We do need some oversight into development of these complex AI offerings.
There's it's we got to first identify the risks that we're trying to mitigate that potentially need some sort of regulation, because we had to be careful that we're on the one hand we're saying, oh, it's not going to take over the world, it's not doomsday. Oh, but we really need to have regulation. Well, it's like, well, why? Like, if you said it's not scary, but yet we need to regulate it. So what's the disconnect there? So that's going to be part of it is identifying, well, what are those risks? It's not the risk that, I think you said it earlier, that Chat GPT is going to get the nuclear codes kind of thing and have its own agenda. That's not it. It's not a personality. It's just a decision making type of machine.
So, Michael, with education and the ability to embrace that, or maybe not, how do you see schools maybe being able to leverage this and really help our students, be prepared for the future?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question that way, because I think right now we just don't really know how to react to this. A lot of schools don't know how to react to this, and therefore it's deemed cheating, to use this. Even though schools don't have official policies on AI. AI just develops so fast that schools are way behind. But I think it can really, really help students. And I don't mean help in a way that I think is similar to cheating. I think it can help students understand. One example is, let's take quantum computing as an example. Okay, like most people don't know what this is. Some people do. It's confusing. You can actually ask ChatGPT, explain quantum computing to me like I'm 10 years old. And it can do it. It can do it really well. And I think for students to have access to a tool that can explain things a little bit different than maybe the way that their professor or textbook went about describing a certain problem or situation, I think is really valuable.
Yeah.
And another really important point is there is no one alive today in the United States, as just an example, there's no one alive today that will not have access to tools like this in the future. I mean, they are here. They will always be here. They will always be better. In fact, what we have right now, I think in a few years, we'll look back and think it was pretty rough. So because of that, there's really only one option I believe that you can take, which is to embrace it. And I think it should be taught in schools. I think it should be something that is really embraced. And I was really glad to find out our local superintendent had breakfast with him and had discussion on AI, and he's way ahead. He's thinking about it. He wants to embrace it. He wants it to be integrated into curriculum. I think to just oppose it and to ban it would be catastrophic. It is here. It'll always be available. Let's embrace it, teach it, and maximize value there. So what are your thoughts on that, Nate?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I read an article a while ago just about that dilemma, because if you look at it in terms of, well, AI is just going to give me the answer to the test without me having to put any work into it. And you look at it that way, you're like, oh yeah, that's a problem, because we want you to go through the actual process of critical thinking to arrive at the answers. And if we bypass that, then people aren't going to have the ability to think. But really the solution isn't just to ban it and not use it, but now how can we incorporate critical thinking type skills with AI and multiply that, because AI is a great tool that if you have the skills of critical thinking, AI is just going to make you that much better.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
I think of like when I was taking some of my advanced math classes and had the super smart professor, but he had one way of describing it or explaining it. Had parents that had never taken, those classes, I would have loved to have been able to say, hey, describe this to me as if I'm, 13 years old.
Yeah.
So
it's a really good tool. And Scott, I'm really curious to hear your perspective too. Because we represent a couple different age groups here. What do you think?
Hey now.
What do you think are some of the misconceptions amongst some of your peers outside of work?
I think, unfortunately, our media can really push people into, especially with unknown things like this. They can push the fear button and really, and it's really unwarranted. And it's fear about something they don't know about. And so I've always been one of, hey, let's check into this, let's verify it. I'm all for, moving forward and leveraging the tools that we have, at our disposal. But like Nate said earlier, I think it's really being able to lean into it and understand what it can do, and then what our part in understanding, the results that it comes back with. We still have to think, evaluate, use discernment and wisdom to apply the answers that are given.
Scott, I want to give people a really good example of how you and I have used AI in our job, and specifically talking about ChatGPT. But you and I, we do a lot of interviews, we do a lot of screening, we put together a lot of job descriptions. That takes a ton of time. And I remember recently, you and I threw into ChatGPT a couple basic bullet points for what the job entailed.
Yep.
And we asked it to come up with a title, and we asked it to actually write a job description and a job summary. And it was about 10 seconds later that we had all three of those, and saved us, a solid hour, 2 hours maybe of time. What's a couple other ways? I know you and I have used it at work. What's another way?
Yeah, that's definitely a huge one. I think the other one is just being able to it actually can listen to the audio of a meeting that you have and come up with a summary of, hey, what were some of the main topics?
Yeah.
What were some of the action items? To be able to feed it that kind of meeting and then have your notes done in less than 5 minutes. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. The taking away the tedious busy work pieces of it so that you can focus more on the strategic thinking aspects. It's huge. Yeah. So helpful.
All right, guys, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. We have over 50 million small to medium-sized businesses that represent over 50% of the economic growth engine in the U.S. How do they go about leveraging AI and beginning to delve into that so that they can take advantage of this incredible tool?
Yeah, there's a couple ways, and there's obviously some industry specific ways that it can be done. I'll just highlight one really basic way. There's a lot right now coming down the pipe for analyzing data using AI. And so, just as an example, if I take all my customers and all my POs and all my SOWs, take everything, and AI has access to some of that, I can have it identify opportunities. So let's say I sell computers and monitors, and I've got all this information in a database. Well, I could even ask AI, hey, what are additional opportunities? Well, these customers didn't buy a dock from you, or these customers didn't buy a phone, or whatever it might be. So there's ways to analyze data that would take an analyst, forever, and it's a matter of minutes. And one of those tools is Power BI with Copilot, and that's a Microsoft product coming down the pipeline. They fed it tons and tons and tons of hotel and resort data, and they asked it a simple question: what's a common trend amongst my repeat customers? And it was 3 seconds later, it said, well, most of your repeat customers purchased a spa visit. Think about, I'm a small business owner and I have that type of information, what that could really mean for my business. It's just incredible at how many layers of data it can peel through in just minutes. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Less of an exciting example like that, but just the more mundane level of what are the mundane routine processes, day-to-day processes every day in your business where it's a simple decision making that just needs to happen. It's very routine, very regular. A lot of manual touch points that have to happen. They have to go through multiple hands. Like what are those things? Identify those. Chances are there's something in AI that can automate those pieces that can save a tremendous amount of hours cost. And so not only do you reduce costs, but you also increase the speed at which you can do business because you've automated a lot of these things. And like I said, AI is very, very good at that.
I think as long as business owners right now are looking and researching ways that they can utilize the tool, I think they'll be in good shape. As long as the approach isn't that this is a dangerous thing to engage in, or I need to run the opposite direction. Then they can be in good shape. And I'll give you just one more example I heard recently. Small business owner looking to hire somebody internally to do some social media posting. It's just one example. Well, they used AI to generate 100, Facebook and LinkedIn posts, and they input the target market, and they input what they were trying to sell, and before you know it, they have 100 posts queued up, ready to go for social media. Tremendous cost savings for the small business, and the ads were actually highly effective. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I think the big key takeaway is don't be afraid of it. The mindset of if it ain't broke, don't fix it is absolutely not going to be a strategic advantage right now in this market, because your competition is, chances are they are going to try to leverage AI and will become more effective because of that. And it behooves you as a small business owner to try to stay ahead of your competition, to see how AI could be used and leveraged in your business. Now, again, it's not going to solve everything. There's certain aspects that AI isn't super good at, and the face-to-face client interaction, like that never goes away. Like that's always valuable. But to be able to analyze lots of data and do statistical analysis, automate tasks, like that's the kind of thing that AI is really, really good at.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've really appreciated about our company, is just being able to sit down with our clients and really strategically think through, okay, where are you headed? And here's the tools, and here's what's on the horizon that we can leverage for you to kind of, take your business to the next level.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, IT has always been sort of in this real basic infancy stage of, it's broken, I need you to fix it, right? And that's fine. There will always be things that need fixed, and I think we're always happy to fix them. But when we can introduce something that helps that organization really move forward and achieve its business objectives and its realize its strategic goals, that's when IT is at a whole new level. And I think AI is really going to be a major part of that for most businesses in the near future.
Yeah, I want to kind of shift our focus just a little bit, and for the average person, what's a way for them to dip their toe in the water and begin to expose themselves and maybe understand, a little bit more of what this is about, or get their hands on it?
Yeah, really good question there. Well, if you've used Gmail, if you've used a smartphone, if you've used Google Maps, people have loads of exposure to AI today, and they have for quite some time. But if they're wanting to just sit down and interact with something, for sure I would recommend ChatGPT. I mean, this is an incredible tool available for free for Apple iPhones, Google smartphones. It's on the Play Store. It's on the App Store. ChatGPT by OpenAI. Make sure to find the official app. There's a lot of imposters out there, but this is an amazing tool to just ask some questions and kind of get some exposure to some of this technology.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great place to do it. It's fun to throw stuff at it and just to see what it produces. But I think it's important too to see there's some limitations with it. It is not a perfect tool. If you ask it to do math, for example, like it bombs.
Yeah.
If you understand the way it works, it makes sense why it doesn't work. But it is, pretty fun.
So what do you see as maybe some of the future implications? I think a lot of articles I've read are the potential of job displacement. There's also the whole issue of having enough, people to actually be behind the technology and really a labor shortage there. Yeah.
So Scott, this is an area I'm really passionate about. I think the more time that we spend worrying about some sort of Terminator doomsday, that's nothing but a distraction on some of the real problems that we have coming down the pipeline. Mm-hmm. So as a country, we are way behind in science and math. And as a country, we are already not producing enough engineers for current for the current demands, for the current market. I was reading today, Intel and the U.S. government, there's something like $60 billion prepared to start manufacturing chips here in the United States and kind of reduce our dependency on foreign countries for chip manufacturing. It's taking 3 to 6 months to hire the 150,000 open positions because we don't have the engineers. And there's a lot of questions on, is this softer curriculum? Is this, what's really causing this? And there's a lot of debate. I don't think it's crystal clear, but the thing that is crystal clear is we're behind on mathematics, and we're behind in sciences, physics. We're behind in really key areas that you don't need to be an expert to utilize AI, but if you're building these systems, if you're working for Google as an AI expert, as an example, chances are extraordinarily high that you have an exceptional background in math, in various sciences. So I think we need to start asking ourselves, how can we bridge that gap? What is really causing that problem? Why are we so far behind other countries in these areas? And to me, that problem needs to be front and center. And the problems about doomsday, end of the world, it's distracting us from that real problem, and it just does not really warrant the conversation at this point. So that's just an issue I'm really passionate about.
Yeah. Nate, do you have any thoughts on, just the concerns that, oh man, if this AI becomes so incredibly useful and powerful that it's going to displace, maybe some of the line workers and that kind of thing?
I mean, it is a possibility. And with any revolution in industry, there's going to be some displacement or transition, just because we're able to be much more productive, much more easily. But that doesn't mean that people's livelihoods and well-beings are suddenly that we don't care about that or anything of that nature. It's, again, AI is a tool. It is not a replacement. So I don't really see it so much that suddenly jobs are just going to cease to exist. And one day you're going to wake up and it's over. As much as it's going to be a transition, we're going to find better ways to do the same job using these tools, and over time we'll transition. People will transition into other careers and otherwise as it becomes more productive. I think I used the example earlier, the telephone operator. I mean, that's something that doesn't exist anymore. Now you go back 50, 60 years. I mean, that was a big. There were a lot, hundreds of people, thousands of people employed, probably tens of thousands. I don't know what the full thing, but it was central to the operation of communications. But over time, as technology got better, it has slowly become non-existent. And nowadays nobody's really clamoring for the telephone operator position. It's kind of similar with AI, and another way to put it too, and why we shouldn't shy away necessarily from AI and the opportunities that it brings in greater productivity and as a tool. As you think about it's the analogy of if you're a carpentry person and you're using a hammer, and suddenly an electric drill comes around and the screw gun or the nail gun comes around, it's not that the nail gun's going to take your job and replace you. It's more like the guy who learns how to use the nail gun, who's much more productive. That's the one that's going to replace you. But you have an opportunity you can learn, and you can gain that skill and use it. And I think it's really the opportunity ahead of us. It's not to look at that as a threat and try to keep it at bay, but look at it as an opportunity, and how can we leverage and use it to be more productive and more effective.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've really appreciated about our company is the minute we saw some of these trends, we started having conversations of, hey, how can we leverage this technology in our line of business? I mean, you would assume, yeah, we're in technology, but there are incredible, ways that we can trend out with this and actually help our clients be prepared to take more advantage of it. Michael, there's some practical ways you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most practical ways is, we've steered a lot of customers towards the Office 365 suite of tools. And Microsoft has been very, very, very aggressive in adopting OpenAI and integrating OpenAI into their platform of applications. So just as an example, there's going to be a release here very soon where within Outlook itself, you'll be able to put in just a few ideas. Hey, I'm putting together an email for my company to announce, happy hour on Friday, and it will generate the email for you. Now, generally, you're gonna proof it a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to make sure it's on point. But what would take maybe, let's just say 10 minutes is now going to take me a minute, and those 9 minutes are valuable, right? So, I'm really looking forward to, it's right around the corner. There's going to be a lot of integration between the Microsoft platform and some very, very useful AI technologies. And we're equipped and positioned to take advantage of that, and our customers are as well. So really looking forward to that.
Nate, what are some of the ways you've seen us in our software engineering departments? What are some ways we're using that?
Oh yeah. So we're already exploring ways for one, how can we leverage the ability of AI to take in all of the source information and documentation, even source code itself, and be able to quickly provide helpful guidance for engineers, because there's just a lot to keep track of just internally, and how to get the information that we need. Or working, especially maybe somebody's working on a new tool set and they're just not familiar with either the customer's business model or with the code itself. Like leveraging those tools that can quickly get that information to them. We're thinking about that and working with that in a more day-to-day practical level, using like a chat GPT and these large language models to generate aspects of code. It's kind of similar to the email that Michael just shared, but where a software engineer can say, hey, I need to code this feature to call this library over here. Can you generate the code for me? And it'll spit out the code. And likewise, like, you're gonna have to proofread it. It might compile, but chances are it's probably gonna take a little bit of tweaking. But the time that it took to get there is vastly faster than it took if they just came up with it on themselves. And especially if it's newer libraries, it's just something you haven't worked with before, which is common. Like software engineers, like every day you're working with something maybe slightly new, or you just haven't worked with it in a while, and it's changed since the last time you worked with it. I sidetrack here, but one of the most important side skills that a software engineer can have, aside from coding, is Google skills. And being able to research and quickly get information. So having something like a chat GPT is a step up even from Google, where you just say, here's what I want, give me an example, and it can just spit it right out there. It's so much quicker.
So what closing thoughts would you guys have related to this whole, emerging technology of AI? What would you encourage our listeners with?
Embrace it. I mean, look for the opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's have eyes wide open. It's one, it's not a panacea, and two, that there are risks that we do need to be aware of. But that doesn't mean we run away from it. We can't. It's not going to go away.
Right.
It's either we can ignore it and get left behind, or we can take it head on and embrace it and move forward with it.
One thing I would say is, I've got 4 young kids right now in school. Nate, you've got 2 in school. I think as a parent, it's important to consider what's happening right now with AI as you help steer and direct your children. And obviously they ultimately will do their own thing, right, to a degree. But it's really important to think about how this impacts their education, I was talking earlier about how much this is going to contribute to economy. It's going to create a lot of wealth for people. Let's take Amazon as an example. What did the internet do to Amazon.com? It created a lot of prosperity. And look, everybody's a pretty happy consumer of Amazon services, right? I mean, we're glad they exist for the most part. So I look at that, and there will be equivalent opportunities that AI provides. And so to participate in that, to be a beneficiary of this new revolution, I think you got to be prepared in the same way that I feel Amazon was prepared to at the time. I believe it was only books that they were selling, but they were prepared to adopt, the internet and launch an online store. And I think we can prepare our kids and their futures for what's coming. And it's we don't have all the answers, but I think we need to be thinking about how much this is going to impact us and it's going to create new opportunities. And those opportunities, just like looking back at the internet, and when was it? Late 90s, really, when it started to take off. So we're in that period right now with AI. And I think that the more time we can spend focusing on how to participate, how to be enriched, how to really benefit from all this, I think is way better than how do I stay away from it? How do we, how is this thing going to ultimately lead to the end of the world and all those thoughts? I think that clouds our mind, and it's a waste of time versus being able to participate.
Well, guys, hey, thanks for the conversation. Appreciate you guys joining us today.
Good.
We've got future content that's coming out, so be sure and subscribe wherever you digest your social media. And Michael, you want to tell them a little bit about some of the other things we're going to be talking about in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we plan on kind of balancing this out a little bit. Some business topics, we really want to dive into leadership and employee retention, just various business topics, and we'll have plenty of tech topics here as well. So good mix of both. Also, I just really wanted to thank the team here at Dream On Studios again. Just a phenomenal setup and support through the whole process. So.
Yeah, Michael, that's great. I'm really looking forward to diving into those topics, and we look forward to you joining us next time.